The fourth quarter for the Orlando Magic on Wednesday was a disaster, but not for the reason you think. The identity questions the Magic face 5 games into the season. Let's talk about it today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. And my name is Phil Prossenreich. Today is October 31st, 2024. Happy Halloween. You are listening to Locked On Magic. Fixed it up on you there a little bit. I am, of course, Phil Prossenreich, the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. I mix things up. Everything goes crazy. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic fall to the Chicago Bulls 102-99 in an absolutely weird and disastrous fourth quarter. Why Jamal Mosley's right that it's not about the fourth quarter. We'll get to that. I definitely want to talk about that. But why the Magic's fourth quarter wasn't a disaster for the reason that you think. Well, for the reason that you think, but also not the reason that you think. We'll get to all of that coming up here in just a moment. First, I want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. And you can make Locked On Magic even more a part of your day thanks to the new Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The theme of today's episode is going to be identity. Let's start right there. We're going to talk both offense and defense, because while the Magic have had a very strong 3-2 start, and there's a lot of things to get excited about, there have also been some very big glowing red lights that have been going on. And look, it is probably proper and probably correct to say we're just 5 games into this thing, guys. Relax. As you know, our friend Matt Moore of Locked On Nuggets, as well as the Action Network, always used to say when people freaked out about early season results, the first 2 weeks of the season are kind of random. The Wizards just beat the Hawks twice. The Pistons just beat the Sixers today. The Pacers lost a 24-point lead to the Celtics. Celtics are good. Won in overtime. Everybody is still kind of settling into who they are. And so we want to find trends. We want to see what lasts and what's consistent. And again, like I said yesterday, the big thing we want to learn on this road trip for the Magic is what's consistent. What are they going to be able to lean on when they need it most? We are going to talk a lot about the defense, because I want to highlight the defense and some of the places where it's fine, they'll be okay, and some of the places where there are some major concerns. And as Jamal Mosley correctly pointed out, as bad as that fourth quarter was for the Magic, they lost the game by giving up 34 points in the second and third quarter by letting Chicago eat into that 20-point lead instead of putting their foot down like they did in Miami and winning the darn game. But we can't ignore that fourth quarter. It is the highlight. It is the headline. It is just something that just stood out, because Wednesday's game against Chicago played exactly like Monday's game against Indiana. And if we're going to talk about consistency, this is something consistent now. 2 games that play out very much the same way. Even to some extent, the Brooklyn game, even to some extent, the Miami game. We're seeing pockets of the same thing happening over and over again. The Magic came out guns blazing, making threes. They were 5 of 13 in the first quarter, getting turnovers, getting transition points, getting to the basket, using their defense to feed their offense. They build a 20-point lead. And then slowly it all kind of stops. And then we get to the fourth quarter. And yes, the lead is gone. The Magic are trailing. They're having to climb uphill. They led entering the fourth quarter. It's not like they were completely done, but they still had an opportunity to win. This team is good enough to make mistakes against the Chicago team that, yes, is still a postseason capable team. Not a championship contender. We're going to find out a lot Friday in Cleveland. But this is still a team that the Magic are good enough that they can make mistakes. They can have a bad quarter and still be in complete control of the game. And so the fourth quarter matters because the game was there for the taking and the Magic didn't take it. If we got to start somewhere, let's just start with the basics. The Chicago Bulls outscored, and I use that term extremely loosely, outscored the Orlando Magic 16-12 in the fourth quarter. That's right. Magic scored just 12 points in the fourth quarter. They shot 4 for 22. The teams combined to miss their first 21 shots in the quarter. So nothing crazy there. It took 4 minutes before Chicago finally made a free throw to get points on the board. The Magic shot 4 for 22 in the fourth quarter. 0 for 12 from beyond the arc. They got to the line for just 4 free throws. They had 4 turnovers as well. Not nearly as big of a deal. Magic were okay on that end. We'll get to the defense, but give the defense all the credit in the world. With the Magic unable to buy a bucket, the defense kept them in the game. The defense gave them a chance to win, and that's all you can ask for. In fact, literally the defense gave them a chance to win because on the Bulls' final possession of the game, Jalen Suggs knocked the ball off Patrick Williams out of bounds with the Magic down by 2 to steal a possession. And then after some chicanery, and we maybe need to talk about that as well, after some chicanery, the Magic got not a great look, not a well-executed set. But they got a shot from Jalen Suggs that rimmed out, and we're not playing overtime. And then Paolo Banchero made a ridiculous shot that was very clearly after the buzzer for 3 that would have tied the game. So neither here nor there. Of course, the one shot the Magic make in the fourth quarter was the one that happened after the buzzer. But that last play was symbolic of the struggle. And really the struggle from maybe the middle of the second quarter to the end of the game. The theme of today's episode, again, is identity. What is this Magic team's offensive identity besides Paolo Banchero? Last year, the Magic's offense was nothing to write home about. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Magic's offense was not good last year. It was stuck in the mud. But I will give it this credit. They knew what they needed to do to succeed. If any of you listened to me at all last year, you probably heard me really obsess over points in the paint and said, win the paint, win the game. That was my rallying cry for the Magic last year. We knew they weren't going to take or make a lot of threes. So the Magic, almost by necessity, had to win the paint. They had to average 50 points in the paint per game, at least, to give themselves a chance to win. And look, the numbers would say that's the only thing the Magic did well. Last year, the Magic were 8th in the league, averaging 51.8 points in the paint per game. They led the league with a 28.7% free throw rate, nearly 3 free throw attempts for every 10 field goal attempts. The Magic may not have been able to shoot the ball particularly well, but that was their identity. And in this game against the Bulls, by Paolo Banchero's own admission, including himself, which he did. Okay. Well, I love that he's, taking some blame on that and understands that he has to be part of this push too. The Magic did not attack downhill. We'll get to the box score, but Paolo Banchero had 31 points in this game. Shot a really solid 12 for 22, but just 2 of 9 from 3. That means 7 of his 10 misses were 3-pointers. Makes you wonder why he's taking and settling for so many threes. And very clearly he was. In Wednesday's game, the Magic only got 20 free throw attempts, 18 for 20 from line. So at least they made them. They only scored 38 points in the paint. They were 19 for 32, an area where they certainly could improve. And they took 46 3-point attempts, 11 for 46. And they were 5 for 13, which means they were just 6 for 33, which is about 18% in the final 3 quarters. This offense is changing. We have to admit that it's better. This offense is better. And a lot of it is because, yes, the Magic are a better 3-point shooting team. Including Wednesday's game now. The Magic are taking 42.8 3-point attempts per game. That's 6th most in the league. Last year, they were 29th, taking about 31 3-point attempts per game. They're making 34.6% of those shots, which is 19th in the league and obviously down after their showing in Wednesday. We're still dealing with small sample sizes. But even being 19th in the league in 3-point field goal percentage, while taking the 8th most threes or the 6th most threes in the league, that's clearly transformative for this offense. But it's also a crutch. And this is the risk you run into. When you're hitting threes, when you're making threes, it covers up a lot of mistakes. The Bulls hit a ton of threes in the second and the third quarters. Let me get those numbers for you, actually. I don't want to just say ton. They were 3 for 6 from 3 in the second quarter, 8 for 14 in the third. Why did Chicago close the gap and take the lead eventually in this game? It's because they made shots. And we won't get to this debate. I want to wait till we get a few more numbers before we really dive into this a little bit more. So this is a preview of that discussion. This is the modern NBA. You have to survive the hot spurts when teams get hot and wait for them to get cold and strike. That's the NBA. That's a big part of the NBA today. The Magic got hot in the first quarter. The Bulls got hot in the third quarter. Who won is going to be determined by who won the moments when those threes aren't falling. You just got to survive when the threes are going in. And guess what? There's going to be games that you play where the other team just gets hot and there's nothing you can do. That's the reality of the space and pace NBA that we're in. But the Magic's offense should have this identity. With their size, with Paolo Banchero's ability to get to the rim, they should be able to put pressure on the rim. Pressure on the rim, pressure on the foul line. That's the Magic's offensive identity. And it's great that they're taking more threes. I think that's a fantastic thing. But as Wednesday's game showed, their inability to score in the paint and consistently get to the foul line, that's what slowed their offense down. Here's the numbers. After being 8th in the league in points in the paint per game last year, the Magic are averaging only 40 points in the paint per game this year. They're 27th in the league. They're taking 27 field goal attempts per game in the restricted area this season. They took 29.1 per game last year. That was second most in the league. They're down in that front. And look, this is the trade-off. You take more threes, as long as you're turning the ball over less. You take more threes, you're getting fewer shots elsewhere. And Paolo was right. He mentioned this too. It's worth mentioning. Chicago did a great job defensively. They walled him up in the second half in a way that they weren't in the first half. He was getting wherever he wanted and getting to the basket with ease in the first half. In the second half, they were walling him up, putting two bodies in front of him. He was passing to open shooters who missed. And then he started settling for jumpers. And then he frankly started passing up opportunities to draw fouls to try and hunt for those 3-point shots. That's the trade-off. And that's the problem with the Magic becoming this dramatically improved 3-point shooting team. This is the question of identity that I have for this Magic offense. It is better. Do not get me wrong. I am really excited and really happy with how the offense has played early in the season through these first 5 games. But there's a cost to what they're doing. And that cost them against Chicago. Because it's a mindset. You got to put pressure on the rim. You've got to stretch that team in the paint. And I get it. Paolo's kind of alone on this. Him and Franz Wagner are the only players that can really get downhill. Jalen Suggs isn't quite doing it yet. The Magic's 3-point shooters have been better, but inconsistent. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not hitting threes yet. Gary Harris had the big game against Miami. He struggled since. Cole Anthony struggled. Jed Howard's a rookie. Anthony Black is still pretty much considered a non-shooter. Jalen Suggs has been impressive, but he's settling. The Magic have to get downhill better and get to the basket. Because the threes, while a big reward when they go in, are hurting the Magic in another key area. Jamal Mosley is right. It's not just about the fourth quarter. It's about the second and third quarters when the defense did not do its job. So should we be worried? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this fall with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats view, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Big NFL action this Sunday with our teams here in Florida. The Miami Dolphins heading up to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills, 5.5-point underdogs. So you get 5.5 points there. The Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Philadelphia, 7.5-point underdogs. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Kansas City for Monday Night Football, 8.5-point dogs there. If you don't want to bet the dogs, well, you can bet the favorites. And the favorites this weekend include UCF, 6.5-point favorites at home Saturday against Arizona. The Magic, of course, on there too with their futures. I don't believe they've posted the game against the Cavs. I'm not seeing it up here yet either, but we'll have the odds for the game against the Cavs on tomorrow's ad read for FanDuel. FanDuel has so much like that and more, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. One thing should be clear, though. Let's make this really, really clear. I'm not a panicker. It's 5 games in the season. Weird stuff happens. I mentioned some weird stuff that's been happening around the league. Teams are still developing their identity and experimenting and figuring out what works and what doesn't. So this game hurts. It's bad. It's a bad loss. Do not get me wrong. All credit to the Chicago Bulls. They earned the win. They deserve the win. Go listen to Locked On Bulls to hear their reaction to their side of this win. The Magic blew this game. And this is a game they could come to regret later in the season. Up by 20, just like they were up 12 at the half against Indiana. I think they were up by 20 at one point in the second quarter. I think they were up 13 at halftime. The Magic have to learn to put these games away, just like they did against Miami. They did it against Miami. We saw it. But the way they did it against Miami was not because of their shooting. The way they built the 20-point lead was not even because of their shooting. It's because of their defense. And while the fourth quarter it is and deserves headlines and examination to figure out what went wrong, the answer could simply be the Magic missed shots. That happens. If you're missing shots, you live with it. Just like the biggest play in that game, the decisive play in that game was Patrick Williams hitting a 3 to make it a 4-point game. Patrick Williams entered the day 5 for 17 on threes. He made 3 threes in the game. If it were Kobe White beating you with threes, or Zach LaVine beating you with threes, or Nikola Vucevic beating you on threes, that might be one thing. Patrick Williams is the guy you want beating you on the 3-point line. Josh Giddey was like 4 for 4 from 3. Those are the guys you don't mind taking those shots. You want to contest them, and Paolo was maybe a little late on that contest late in the game, but if those are the guys that beat you from beyond the arc, you tip your cap to them and you move on to the next one. That happens. The Magic have to make shots. They didn't make shots. We can live with that. But this team is trying to play to a standard. There is a seriousness. There is a maturation about this team. And, you could feel it in the disappointment in the loss. They know they're not playing to their standard. And it isn't just this game against Chicago. If it were just this game against Chicago, it'd be one thing. That we dismissed some of the stuff against Memphis because it was just against Memphis. It's just that one game. But now we have, sorry, my hair's all over the place. Now we have some patterns. Now we have some data, some things that are kind of consistent and happening over and over again. The Magic are giving up these 30-point quarters. They're just a step off. They're not tied together as tightly as they need to be defensively to be the elite defensive team they are. And look, they gave up 102 points in a loss. I think I looked at the data at NBA.com. The Bulls scored only a point per possession. At the end of the day, as bad as the Magic's defense was in the second and the third quarter, their defense not only built the lead in the first quarter, it gave them a chance to win in the fourth quarter. But we're seeing a lot of these similar problems pop up. And we have to ask, should we be worried about this defense? Should we be worried that the defense will not be as elite as this team knows it can be and knows it needs to be? It's probably too early to worry so much about that. But there are trouble spots worth noting and worth mentioning. The first trouble spot being transition play. Look, Chicago leads the league in pace this year. They are really emphasizing pushing the tempo. It isn't just a Lonzo Ball thing. They want to run. And the way the Magic usually were pretty good last year in stopping transition play. But this year, they're not quite on the same page yet. Their transition defense has been okay. But teams have been able to beat them in transition. In fact, Chicago only had 3 fast break points in this game, but you could tell the pace was bothering Orlando on multiple levels. But here's the thing. With the Magic, just generally, teams know that they can't beat the Magic in the half court. And so their strategy, and this has been pretty consistent, is try and get the ball down the court before the Magic can get locked in, can get on the same page. Force them into making decisions and to communicate those decisions. Chicago didn't get a lot of fast break points, but they did a lot of that. And there's 2 ways that teams typically push the tempo. The first is turnovers. That's only fourth quarter. Chicago finished with 18 fast break points, 4 for 11 shooting. So not great. Orlando finished with the same number, so not great. First is turnovers. Orlando only had 12 turnovers for 13 points in this game. Orlando did a good job with turnovers. There's some bad ones. There's some ones at really critical moments. Fourth quarter wasn't great, but turnovers are an issue. The other way is missed shots, and more specifically, missed threes. One of the trade-offs that the Magic are going to have to deal with this year is now that they're taking more threes, now that they're averaging 41, 42 threes per game, there's going to be a lot more longer rebounds. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for players to get the ball and just go. And so with the Magic only making 24% of their threes, not even 24% of their threes, Chicago got a lot of opportunities to run, to create mismatches, to create tension in the Magic's defense where they got to be on the same page. And quite frankly, the Magic aren't all the way there yet. They had it in moments. First quarter was excellent. First quarter, they were dialed in. Fourth quarter, they were excellent. They fouled a little bit too much. That's another problem that this Magic defense has, with the problem they had last year. But the Magic stopped so many fast breaks. This game could have been a blowout if not for the Magic's defense. So I'm not, as much as I agree with Jamal Mosley that this game was kind of lost, especially in that third quarter, when the Magic really let Chicago get cooking and the Magic started settling for threes. The defense is a big reason why this team is in the game. This defense is still elite. They still played elite even with 2 ridiculously bad quarters. And the crazy part about who this Magic team is now is they can go on these crazy defensive runs. They could play solid defense for 7-8 minutes, and it's devastating. It's the third quarter against Miami. It's a 21-0 run against Memphis. It's this fourth quarter against Chicago. It's the fourth quarter against Indiana. Orlando has long stretches of really elite level defense. And now it's just about getting it to be a 48-minute deal. And against the elite teams like the one we're going to see on Friday in Cleveland, like the one we're going to see Sunday in Dallas or on Monday in Oklahoma City, against those elite teams, you've got to be really good defensively the whole way through. And that's kind of the struggle right now for the Magic. Now, after the game, not that these are excuses, but Jonathan Isaac and Paolo Banchero both kind of admitted they're a little bit gassed right now. Teams are running at them so much, and the Magic themselves are trying to play at a quicker pace. They're getting tired, and it's apparent that they are. And on top of that, yes, Franz Wagner is sick. He is not the only one on the team that is sick. He's the only one that is sick enough not to play. He played 23 minutes in this game. But there's clearly a bug going through this team. And it may just be a week and a half, 2 weeks before they look normal, just like last January when the team was very, very clearly very, very sick and very, very hurt. That happens during the course of the season. You just have to survive. But there are holes in this defense, and teams are starting to find it, and we're still early enough that it isn't hurting them. We're still early enough that the Magic are able to kind of find it. Now we just got to get it to last a little longer. Look, Wednesday was a bad night. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was a bad loss. Credit again to Chicago. They deserve it. Listen to our friends at Locked On Bulls to get their perspective on things. This loss was more about the Magic than it was about the Bulls, in my opinion. This was a game where the Magic always, like the game against Brooklyn, always felt like they had control, but were just missing that one shot to put them over the edge. They got out to a fast start. They controlled the game. They controlled the tempo, but they let Chicago hang around. And unlike Brooklyn, Chicago was able to burn them for it. And Orlando couldn't find that reserve. And, eventually in that Brooklyn game, Orlando found the big shot to put themselves over the top. It never felt like Orlando was going to lose that game. Just like, frankly, it never felt like Orlando was going to lose this game. But Orlando couldn't get that shot to get them over the edge, whether it was a Paolo shot, whether it was a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope three or Jalen Suggs three or whatever it was. The Magic couldn't find the Mo Wagner dunk in the fourth quarter of the Indiana game. They couldn't find that play to just allow them to exhale. And I think that's the bigger issue for this team right now, is they're still learning to trust what they're doing. And again, there's a lot of continuity. I think they have a lot of trust. I think they have a lot of belief, but they're about results, and there's pressure, no doubt about it. These results have to be delivered. And so, it's a process that requires patience. I have no other way to say it. This is a process that's going to require some patience. And unfortunately, this night, it cost them. Let's go through the box score. We'll talk a little bit about what we saw from the Orlando Magic coming up here in just a moment. So, 102-99 loss to the Chicago Bulls. It's not a good loss. Again, I want to repeat that. Not a good loss. The Magic have a lot of questions, I think, to answer, and still a lot of development to go. I don't be seduced by making wild conclusions about things. I don't want to say this was just a bad night, because that's my excuse for the Memphis game. And now we have two of them. Now there are two of these nights where this happens. And so that is a reason to be concerned and is a reason to be a little bit skeptical. I think that, and we're going to see Cleveland here on Friday, and we'll talk a little bit more about this on tomorrow's episode as we look ahead to that game against the Cavs. I think the Magic's weaknesses are becoming a little bit more apparent. The point guard issue hasn't resolved itself. It hasn't solved itself. And look, Jalen Suggs had a fine game, 17 points, 7 for 16 shooting, 3 for 9 from 3, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 turnovers, 4 steals, 2 blocks. Like, he's filling up that stat sheet. He's providing some insane and incredible defense. He is all over the place. He's a confident three-point shooter. I don't mind a lot of the shots he's taking. I still think he's settling. I'd like to see him attack the basket more, but, let's talk about that bad play that I mentioned earlier. Suggs gets the steal, knocks the ball off of Pat Williams to get the ball back for the Magic, give them a chance to win. And it's on Suggs to initiate the offense. And he dribbles almost out of bounds, loses the ball, and it goes off a Bulls player. But he couldn't initiate the offense effectively. The Magic inbounded it to Paolo after that. And we all understood that was going to be a weakness for this team, that they don't have that traditional true point guard. And, part of me still, hate me for saying this. Please hate me for saying this because the window's open, winning matters. This is still a development outfit. Like the Magic are still acting like a team trying to see what their young players can do and develop their young players. And I think that patience is warranted. I think this team has earned that patience because they can be successful while they're doing it. But this is where it costs you. This is the kind of game where it costs you. Not having that organizer to set everyone up. The Magic are leaning, and this is the big question entering the season. The Magic are leaning on a player who really struggled as a point guard in his first 2 years in the league, and a second-year player who didn't play point guard as a rookie. Anthony Black showed a lot of promise again in this game. I want to be completely clear about that. Anthony Black finished with 4 points, only 1 for 5 shooting, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 blocks, and a turnover. Filling up that defensive stat sheet. The Magic did a lot of good things. Black made some incredible plays on defense in transition in the fourth quarter. But the Magic need stability. They, when they face these moments when they need to get Paolo the ball, Suggs didn't look comfortable throwing entry passes to Paolo Banchero when he had mismatches. The Magic didn't feel comfortable running sets to maybe move Paolo to the other side of the floor or get Paolo the ball in motion when they needed to get him a touch. That management wasn't there. A lot of people kind of noted too, why isn't Franz Wagner more involved? Franz Wagner, look, he played sick. He played 22 and a half minutes, 7 points, 3 for 8 shooting, 0 for 3 from 3, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, 1 incredible block, I might add. Franz is giving it his all, and it's frustrating that he's playing and not able to give his all and be available at his full speed. Does that mean he should be sitting? I don't know. Franz Wagner is still super valuable, but the Magic miss him. Like the Magic really miss him, and his ability to cut and his ability to be a secondary ball handling threat because the Magic don't have him. So let's talk about Paolo's game a little bit more. Paolo Banchero, another really masterful offensive performance. 31 points, 12 for 22 shooting, 2 for 9 from 3, 5 for 7 from the foul line, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, did have 4 turnovers as well. He had 20 points in the first half, 7 for 11 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3. So again, 1 for 5, 1 for 3. Well, 1 for 5 in the second half. 7 for 11 shooting, just really efficient stuff. 5 for 7 in the first half, which means he did not take a free throw in the second half. I love the way that Paolo played. In the first half, he got downhill, got to the basket whenever he wanted. Second half, he was settling for jumpers. And I think Paolo will be the first person to tell you he is still understanding and internalizing how to be the barometer of this team, how to be the leader of this team. And I think he has to fight himself sometimes to avoid this trap where he settles for jumpers and does what he thinks a star can do. That was one of the criticisms of him during the offseason, was that he settles for jumpers. His shot decision-making isn't great. He can get to the basket really pretty much anytime he wants. Sometimes they forget that, oh, wait, no, Paolo is being walled on everything that he does on the half court. He's got 2 or 3 guys coming at him anytime he's near the paint. And until his teammates prove they can shoot, which they did in the first half and he was successful, and did in the second half and they weren't, until his teammates prove they can shoot, he's going to face these crazy double and triple teams and these crazy defensive schemes all the time. And as a 21-year-old trying to figure that out, that's tough. But Paolo is a star. It's his job to figure it out. And it's his job to keep the team aggressive and not settle himself. If he settles, his teammates are going to settle. If he's not aggressive, if he's not looking to score, his teammates aren't looking to score. And that's the responsibility that I think Paolo Banchero is still learning. Again, he's 21. It's his third season. There's a lot expected of him. We should expect a lot of him. but it's about him still learning, because this isn't just about this year. It's a 5, it's going to be a 6-year game with him now. You got 7 more years of Paolo Banchero trying to figure this stuff out. He'll get better. Paolo, another really strong offensive game, just settled in that second half. And Paolo also admitted that he got fatigued, that he got tired. He has a huge responsibility. Someone else needs to step up and help him. Just plain and simple. Someone else needs to step up and help him a little bit. Wendell Carter had a really nice game as well. 14 points, 5 for 10 shooting, 4 for 4 from the foul line. He did miss all 4 of his 3-pointers, so that means he only missed 1 2-pointer. 7 rebounds, first game of the season without 10 rebounds. A really solid game, though, for Wendell. I thought he did a good job on Nikola Vucevic, who had 18 points on 7 for 16 shooting. He had 14 rebounds, including 6 offensive rebounds. So again, let him off the hook a little bit on the glass. This was Carter's best offensive game of the year. Maybe not his best defensive game, but Carter was solid. Someone the Magic could count on. They needed to do a better job. Just generally, the Magic need to do a better job getting guys in motion and getting passes to guys in motion to into holes in the defense. It's just a very stagnant night for Orlando. And eventually that's not going to help Wendell. That's not going to help Paolo. That's not going to help anybody. The Magic shooters really struggled. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did hit 2 threes, but he was 2 for 7, 3 for 9 overall. So he had 8 points. KCP missing threes is frustrating. That's why the Magic signed him. He's getting fantastic looks. His spacing matters. His gravity matters. It's really, really important. He's been really good, except he's missing shots. And if you have to believe, because he's a veteran, because he knows what he's doing, those shots are going to go down eventually. He's going to find his rhythm. Maybe it'll happen when we go out west in December. Hopefully it happens before then. But at some point, the light's going to go off for KCP, and he's going to shoot 40% from 3. He is too good of a shooter not to do so, but it hurts right now that he's not making shots. I got to give KCP the credit. His defense is incredible. He's been everything the Magic could have asked for on defense and so much more. I was expecting just a solid defender. I wasn't expecting someone who got a ton of deflections, a ton of steals, and was just disruptive. And, that was what the Magic were missing in the third quarter. They just weren't disruptive on the perimeter. They were allowing guys to get by them. They were kind of over-hedging. They were just a little too aggressive going for steals at times because they were able to get so many slap-down steals, and then became too aggressive, fouling too much in the second half as well. But KCP has been everything the Magic could have asked for defensively and a whole lot more. It's been really exciting to watch. Gary Harris also struggled, though. 0 for 3, 0 for 2 from 3. Again, the Magic's 2 best shooters got to make shots. And this was just a game where they did not make shots. Jonathan Isaac returned to score 8 points on 5 rebounds. Some solid defense from him. But again, the Orlando Magic just did not have enough offense. They shoot 40.7% from the floor. In the second half, they shot, let me just get second half stats, 13 for 42. That's 31%. Credit to them. Bulls only shot 38.5% from 3. They were 9 for 20 from 3. Orlando 3 for 20 from 3 in the second half. Orlando finishes 11 for 46 from 3. Overall, 18 for 20 from the foul line. So they just, a lot of missed opportunities offensively. A lot of good open threes in this game. I don't hate the looks the Magic are getting. I'm happy the Magic are taking more threes. I think they're taking a few too many. I'd like to see them closer to 38, 39, 40. I'd like to see them closer to 40 than 45. Because again, I think they need to keep attacking the paint, and that's something they're not doing effectively right now. And that's their offensive identity. I think that's the biggest thing that has to change for this team, is they have to do a better job consistently getting shots in the paint. That's the biggest weakness I see for this team right now, is they're so happy that they're making threes, and they're kind of falling in love with that it's costing them elsewhere. And I think it's also hurting their defense, which is and has been elite all year, except these pockets where they're missing a ton of shots and allowing teams to get out in transition, whether it's turnovers or missed threes. So a lot for the Magic to work on. A disappointing loss, a disappointing effort, but it's just one game. It's still very early in the season. And the good news is they have another opportunity to get things right Friday, and a big one against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Chicago Bulls defeat the Orlando Magic 102-99. Again, the Magic back in action Friday against Cleveland Cavaliers. We will preview that game on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Follow Me Stone podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if that wasn't enough Magic content, your favorite podcast, that's us, Locked On Magic, now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. It's the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. But that's good too for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.